Hello everyone, I'm Sabat Nzaim, and today I'm going to explain what mentally growing up exactly means. But before we start, let's establish what growing up means. There are two types of growing up. One being physical, which means your body growing up, and the other one is the mentally. And the latter one is the main one I'm going to explain. But in order to explain, I decided to use a video game named Finding Paradise. So let's begin. So let's start with Finding Paradise. In Finding Paradise, there is a company that grants wishes to dying people using through the patient's mind using machines. What they do is they look through the memories of the patients, understand them, and tweak them to grant the wishes, whatever the patient wishes. And our protagonist Colin is one of them. What see when the doctor looked through Colin was mostly, he was not confident, he was not motivated, he was alone. He was probably going to live that way. But one thing Colin was good at, he had amazing imagination. And then we see a girl named Faye. He was the exact opposite of Colin. Faye was Faye was energetic, confident, motivated, and so on. What she did was she pushed Colin to do more things. But when the doctors looked closely, when they realized that Faye was not a real person, she was an imaginary friend of Colin's, made based off of a bird Colin saved, which was actually his only friend. And Colin had a dream of becoming a pilot. So, in order to achieve the dream, what Colin did was let go of Faye. He said goodbye to Faye. See, let's go from the top from here. Sometimes this tells us that sometimes in order to grow up, we may have to let some things go. It can be anything actually. It can be a bad habit we have, it can be an attitude we have, whatever it is. And Colin has Faye. He lets Faye go and then he lives a great life. But the truth is, you don't actually have to let them go completely. See, sometimes, at times we may act childish, we may act goofy, whatever it is. That doesn't make us immature. That doesn't make us like necessarily immature. That doesn't make us grown up. But the key thing about that is we need to know when to act childish and when to act mature. See, that's what makes us grown up. See, Colin lives a great life and so on, like I said. But one thing Colin really wanted at the end of his life, but he doesn't know, he wasn't sure, but what he really wanted was faith. See, Colin was actually, he understood. That's why he had to let go of Faith in the first place, because he had to let her go in order to grow up. But he still wanted Faith in the end of his life. There's one more thing about it. Since Colin actually grew up mentally, what he did was he actually hid all the things about Faith. They find out, and the doctors in the game find out actually what what this means is that because he knew he's acting according to the situation, according to people around him. If he didn't do this, people would think he's crazy. People would think he's a schizophrenic. But Colin hides it because he was grown. He knew what was supposed to be kept secret and what was supposed to be told. And so he knew when to act mature and when to act childish. So that's why he actually hit fake. And there's one more thing about mentally growing up. One crucial thing. Responsibilities. See, sometimes we may actually have to take more responsibilities in order to mentally grow. Because if we're stuck in doing the same things we always do, we may not be able to mentally grow actually. Taking more responsibilities also acts as maturity, and that also tells us that also a crucial thing about mentally growing up. So With all this, in conclusion, in order to mentally grow up, sometimes we may have to let some things go, but we don't actually have to let them go completely. It's because the memories, because the experience through that whatever thing we let go, is actually what actually makes us grow up. Just looking back at it, what makes us grow. Also, we may have to act child, we may want to act childish sometimes, and that's completely okay as well. But what the key thing is when to act mature and when to act childish. See, that's what makes you mentally grow. And also when to take responsibilities as well. And that actually means what mentally growing up. And here's a good example of told from Faye about Colin's mentally growing up. You may not actually see it well, but it basically tells us about how he actually grows up. Like she references using the slide in the slide right now. And thanks for listening. I'm Sabat Design.